Welcome to Let's R.A.P.P, where we invite you to rise above personal perception and think outside of the boxed-in belief system. It is our intention through this medium to provoke the world to desire and seek truth above perception. I am Denika Carothers, and with me today is my sister, Nabia Anur. That's a mouthful.
Yes.
And we are here today to talk about what is the difference between truth and perception. Sissy, Nine, she's better known as Nine. But perception deals with the senses, the five senses, as we know. Sight, taste, touch, smell, and hearing. And our perception basically is created from our experiences, things that we've experienced. But what I want to pose today is, how do we define or differentiate the difference between what is perceived and what is truth? We're in a state in the world right now where people are really seeking the truth. And you know, what comes to mind right now is that scripture that says, know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And that's very serious to me. Because it's like, if I got to know the truth to be free, I need to know the truth. So what is your take on perception?
Well, there are several aspects of perception, but the two primary things that come to mind is personal perception and collective perception. Personal perception is your subjective reality, what is personal to you, your scope based on your soul journey, your path, the experiences that you've had in this physical realm since you've been here. And then the collective reality is a much larger scope, but it is the objective reality where the personal perceptions can intertwine and they can come in and kind of traverse that path or even align directly with it. But there's something larger, what we call source's will. And it's a lot deeper than that, which I guess we'll go over in a little bit. I don't want to go too far into that part of it.
Okay, and I want to say here, you said source's will, and you know, this is not a religious or a spiritual show, but because we are spiritual beings,
Exactly.
having a human experience, and that is the very essence of who, you know, both of us are. But we might refer to source or spirit or God or the divine or the creator or the father or the divine mother, and it's all the same. And we want everyone to just be comfortable with where you are spiritually. We're here to learn and grow together, and we don't claim to be authorities on anything, but we too are seeking truth, and we said, let's do it together. You know, let's put it in a medium, and let's R.A.P.P, let's rise above personal perception has been a baby of mine and an idea of mine for such a long time. And you know, I'm just really honored to be a messenger, you know, through which the message comes. And we are seeking for the truth, and we know that the truth comes from source and the divine. And so, you know, it is our prayer and our intention to simply be messengers and vehicles and channels through which whatever the message is that our higher selves or the divine realm is trying to get to us at this moment, that we can truly get it. And I love what you said just now about you said personal perception and then collective perception. And what we're, you know, inviting people to do through this medium is to rise above personal perception.
Right.
So do you think that collective perception leans more toward truth possibly than personal perception, or what's your thinking on that?
That's a loaded question. She sets me up.
And she's loaded. So she can handle it.
I'm going to take it from a very surface level first.
Mm-hmm.
The collective reality, it's every level of consciousness that has been or is to be. Now we're getting ready to get into the idea that there's no past, present, or future, but there's only now. And the way that we experience those realities, they happen because of the time matrix that we exist within. They present themselves in a linear fashion, but but they're in truth not happening that way. And as quantum physics begins to grow, we see different signposts that this is a truth. Even not just people who are interested in metaphysics or have a particular interest in a particular field, but our actual sciences that we've accepted as our ways of measuring what is real now for us is evaluating and have come across ways to confirm that they can bend time-space continuums, which turns time over on itself. And so you can go back in time or you can go forward in time. I only mention that this is not to be a quantum physics element in the show, or focus in the show rather, not element. But I mentioned that just briefly, and it'll probably come up in some of our other shows where we get more in depth. But that's just a little hint that these are things that play into our awakening. For me, truth is like the living word is the truth. And this is not to speak specifically to Christianity, although Christianity focuses on the term, the word. You could be in any, religious or non-religious or spiritual focus or whatever. But for me, the word is that which is brought by the divine. It may or may not have been written. It may or may not be in the ancient text. But we are all divine sparks and emanations and vessels with the greatest possibility of experiencing that which we are or experiencing less than we are. So the word for me is that holy presence personified, coming into manifestation through voice, through flowers, through nature, even through physical structures. This is all possible because of the divine. So the word is the truth, and truth is dimensional. It is a composite thing that we experience in different ways based on, again, our personal perceptions, which are limited in scope based on our experience. That would be physical experience and spiritual experience. What have we matured within? And so if we haven't reached a particular level at a point, and we are introduced to a certain level of a new truth or the different expression of that truth, we may or may not be accepting in our personalities, our incarnate personas. My incarnate persona is not, your incarnate persona is Denika. If we allow the divine to impregnate and be the one that is in control and allow the divine persona to take a backseat and to be more of a slave, if you will, or something that serves us rather than leads, then we will be able to won't be birthed over and over again. I don't remember who said it, but it was a saying from long ago, you have to be ready to die every day for who you can become in the next moment. Right. And so for me, there's this death rebirth cycle is a continual thing that happens on many different levels throughout our lifespan, not just our physical incarnation through the fetal integration birth process when we came through our mothers, our physical mothers, and then again ascend and leave physically our body again. But there's a constant reincarnation happening. There's a constant death and rebirth happening to us on a daily and moment to moment sometimes basis.
Yeah, exactly. And I like what you said with regards to being very specific about this is the incarnation of Nine, this is the incarnation of Denika. And so, it brings a question, what influences our perceptions? So, I grew up in the Bahamas, you grew up in New York. And so even
some of Virginia.
And some of Virginia. Hey, Virginia. But, it's a lot of our perceptions and our truth are going to be based on even our environment and what we experience in the environment. So like I consider myself to be an island girl. So a lot of my perceptions have been island, associated with island, and now having, moved here to the United States of America and having been here for 8+ years, you're able to see other things, experience other things. And one of the things that I was very, very aware of pretty much in the beginning of being sent to the United States of America, because it was a divine move that happened, was that I had been taken out of the box. Because a lot of my belief system was very boxed in based on my experiences, based on my environment, based on my conditioning, based on my teachings, based on my understandings of the teachings.
Can you give me an idea or a small example of what you mean by that?
Well, specifically religiously.
Okay.
Okay. We have rendered ourselves available to be messengers. So I had no idea this was coming up today. But one of the things that I realized, even as far as religion was concerned, I've always been very, very spiritual. Even as a child, I always gravitated towards spiritual things. But then being within the religious system, I then had a lot of perceptions or truths that I later on had to question, because it was based on conditioning, it was based on things that I heard, and there were a lot of things that I heard even as a child that didn't make sense, but as I became older and came in this circle of influence, I accepted it, even though it didn't make sense before, but there came a time when I had to question it again. And so, like with religion, well, I just want to touch on this because I really want us to do a show on this. But like past lives, for example, that was not something that I ever gave consideration to.
When was your first introduction to the term or idea of past lives?
Actually, it came to me organically, and this is where I think even Let's R.A.P.P. was not conceived, because it was conceived before that, but really took place. It was implanted. Because I said to God specifically one day, I said, God, I want to know the truth. What is the truth? I don't want what I've been conditioned to. I don't want my understanding. I don't even want my belief system. I want the truth. I want to understand, what is this life all about? Why am I here? What is the truth of me being here? And it more specifically was focused on me. Because I realized that I had a path. I'm here. I have been through a lot in my life. Was at a place where, I was suicidal at one point in my life, very unhappy, very depressed. There seemed to have been like a lot of loss that was going on. But at the same time, I knew that I had a greater purpose, and I knew that all of this stuff was happening for a reason.
Right.
And I needed to understand what that was. And so I had like a lot of experiences and a lot of feelings with stuff. And you would generally say, okay, well, maybe because this happened to me in my life, this is why I react this way. But I had nothing to match it to.
Right.
So it was like, what the heck is going on? Why am I so affected by this thing? And so actually, my youngest daughter and I had a conversation about something. We were talking about sexual orientations, and specifically persons gravitating toward the same sex. And, she, based on our conversation, I said, well, maybe past life and being attached to a particular soul or experience in a past life carries on into a future life. And I was like, well, maybe that's why I got all these issues that I can't understand what the heck is going on. And so then I started to be open to that possibly being the case. However, I was very, very, very skeptical. And so one of the things that I did say to the creator, I said, I'm going to need this to be a Denika and God 101. I didn't want it to come from any outside influence, because I needed to understand that this was coming from a place that was higher than me and higher than this being. And information started coming in, and books just started showing up out of nowhere. I know there were several times I had a book come on my desk, and when I asked, who put the book here? Nobody knew where the book came from. But these always were books that were in alignment with what my thought process was, and my questioning and my desire for understanding was at that time. Books would just show up, or someone would send me something in an email, and it would have a link to it. And so out of curiosity, I would go on to that link, So that's what I'm saying. And I realized that I had to be taken out of my environment, because I was very saturated in the religious community, very saturated, and also very judgmental, about things that were going on outside of it. And I was so stuck in my perception or my truth that I really wasn't even willing to investigate outside of it. And so I actually was taken up out of that ground and planted somewhere else, because the scripture says, grow where you're planted. And so I was given a different environment in which to grow, and I opened up myself to truth. And so when it started to show up, I remember very specifically when I first came here, and the prayer had happened, and I was in Barnes and Noble reading a book, The Secret.
Okay.
And I finished The Secret in Barnes and Noble, and I still had some time to kill before an event that I had to go to. And so I said, okay, what else am I supposed to read? And that became my practice, really seeking guidance on and direction on what to do next. And so I was drawn to this table that had several books on it. And of course, the book didn't levitate off the table, but I had the experience like the book was the only book that was on the table.
Right, it was highlighted. Yeah.
Right. And so I picked up the book, and it talked about it was by Esther and Abraham Hicks. And it said about Abraham, and so Abraham was someone who I resonated with in scripture very much. I was like, oh, and talk about the law of attraction. I was like, oh, okay, just finished reading The Secret. Abraham, that was a scripture given to me when I came here. Okay, we're gonna pick this book up and read it. And as I started to read it, like very close to the beginning, I realized that the communication of this book was coming through a spirit guide, being given to Esther, but these weren't her words, they were coming from a spirit guide. And immediately I took the book and I did like this. And I said, God, let me tell you something. I'm Bahamian, so the accent might come. I said, God, let me tell you something. If this is the book that you want me to read, I need you to start doing something in here and in here quick, because this does not resonate with what's in here. And I heard very, very clearly, Denika, read the book. And I picked it up, and that really, that book changed my life. That book.
Which book was this by?
It was